It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I'm excited to talk with my guest today. Joining me is Peter Mollins, CMO at Knowledge Tree, which, according to their website, radically boosts the value sales teams deliver to prospects, which is, that's a great goal to have, Peter. So welcome to Accelerate.
I appreciate it. Yeah, really looking forward to the conversation.
So take a minute, introduce yourself, and maybe give us a little bit about your background, how you ended up at Knowledge Tree.
Sure. So I've been in marketing since back at Netscape. I interned with Netscape, and I think I was there. I interned over in Europe, and I was there. Introduced every conference session at their first European conference, and so they used my voice to good effect. And then have been in marketing roles ever since, but principally marketing roles that focus on the sales side of things. I've always been a big fan of marketing, working very closely with sales. So every role I've been in, from event marketing through product marketing through marketing strategy, has always been focused on how we can use marketing resources in order to drive better quality opportunities, and then ultimately drive those through to close won deals and upsell. So have been with organizations like Mollins, Micro Focus Relativity, and iMediation. So startups right through FTSE listed companies. So
Sure.
Got to see a good perspective.
Yeah. So okay, let's use that perspective here. So you seem like, based on how you self-describe as a marketing person enthusiastic about sales, that that could be a minority.
I think you're right.
Yeah, how's that going to change? One of the topics that's beat to death endlessly on this show, as well as many others, is marketing sales alignment. Some companies are doing it better,
right?
And certainly you guys are Knowledge Tree as a tool to help that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what's the key to making that happen? I mean, it's certainly the benefit of everybody, every company, if they can make that happen.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, I think it is definitely a goal. I think a lot of people are trying to do it right now. I think that everyone is going to fail at it unless they do one thing, and that's tie marketing metrics back to sales metrics. And so for me personally, sure, I have a goal for the team around amount of meetings that are set, amount of inbound meetings that are set as well. But that's not my primary goal. My primary goal is revenue. And if marketers aren't linking back to that, then they're going to be misdirected on so many different things. You're going to have that classic bias of trying to generate lots of leads and have events where you have 500 attendees and you're proud of that, but how much business did it drive? You're going to have the pride in having 10,000 followers on Twitter, but again, how much business did that drive? And so I think increasingly we're seeing companies that see the future in tying marketing goals back to revenue. But until you do that, it's almost impossible for marketing to redirect itself.
And is it just purely revenue, or are there also sales process metrics that are relevant to marketing?
Well, I think there are, and I think where that comes in is some of the opportunity dynamics. So, for instance, if you're able to produce opportunities out of your leads and looking at the cost of customer acquisition across those opportunities that are generated, you're going to want to see that. The timing that it takes, so how long does it take before an MQL or a qualified meeting is turned into an opportunity. So definitely timing type metrics are important, and various stages in the funnel are important. But to me, I still feel like those are entirely subservient to the revenue number. And the reason why I think that you can still tie it to revenue, some people will push back and say you can't because so much of it is tied up in actual sales methodology, sales process. But even at larger organizations and even in complex sales, marketing is helping throughout that entire process. I mean, there's the obvious things like, did you generate any leads for me? But even beyond that, building business cases, being able to help salespeople to engage prospects as they're moving through a process, helping to identify who are the 19 other shadow buyers within an organization that the salesperson maybe didn't know about or wasn't able to mine for. being able to identify signals about which are priority accounts and which are opportunities that may be flailing because of data that you're getting from marketing automation or from predictive analytics. So to me, I think there's this whole range of ways that marketing can influence and support sales, that goes way beyond that simple handoff that I think we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you sort of alluded to, which is, take MQLs, for instance, marketing qualified leads. I mean, if conversion rates off of those things certainly talk about whether you're either targeting the right people or sales has as you said, the right information to be able to address and have conversations with those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's right. I think that conversion rates are still important. I think that even if you do focus on revenue, if you're not looking at the dynamics of conversion rates, it's going to lead to more friction because you've got salespeople that are working meetings that aren't going to pan out, and clearly they're going to get frustrated. They're going to go off on their own. I think where we're seeing a lot of traction for marketers that care about sales and for that sales and marketing partnership is around two things, and I think that one is identifying which are the people and which are the accounts that you want to focus on. And then secondly, what is it you say to them? So who to talk to and what to say to them. And I think that's where marketers that think about sales, ought to be focused. So who to focus on? Well, we're seeing, predictive technologies like, say, from Zoom or ZoomInfo or Inside View or 6 Sense, Lattice, Radius, these companies where, pushing out signals that identify who to focus on. And I think the logical next step is, all right, well, you're talking to a CIO at a financial services company. What's the message that's going to resonate best with them? And marketers have a ton of data about which content or which message, which script even is going to resonate best because they're doing this at scale. They're sending emails, they're watching website visitors, and so they have a lot of data about what is going to be the message that's going to resonate with those people. And so combining those two elements, the who to talk to and then what to say to them, is I think the foundation of a great sales enablement program.
So why are sales so skeptical of marketing assistants often in those dimensions, right? Because you're, I'm sure, painfully aware, we've both seen it, is that marketing delivers something that could be a great message and sales takes it and shifts it 90 degrees and that's what they talk about.
Well, I think you're right, and I think that comes back to I think this switch that marketing has to take, which is realizing that the data that they need to have in order to have a good conversation with sales and be really supportive of sales can't stop midway through the funnel. They have to be getting data later in the sales process, and so that's data about who and what are people in these prospect accounts doing on the website, which content's working. And I think where we see the failure is, let me just take content, for example. Marketers are producing a ton of content, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, the content marketing wave has been here for many years. But when you think of the kinds of content that marketing teams too often focus on, it's things that are maybe a blog post or an infographic, which are fantastic for top of funnel. But for bottom of funnel, I think that's where a lot of the skepticism comes in. It's like, I love your infographic. It's really, really adorable. But, to be honest, I'm selling to Boeing and I've got 50 people on a decision committee, and that infographic's not going to help me. I need something that's going to build a business case. So the skepticism is healthy and it's totally justified. But to solve that problem, marketing needs to pay more attention to what is actually happening in a buyer's journey in the middle and bottom of the funnel.
Well, and I think oftentimes the issue with salespeople is that they don't even think about marketing beyond the top of the funnel, right? Once they're out working the deal and maybe they've hit an obstacle that they need to address, when they start thinking about the resources they need to help them solve that, marketing's oftentimes not at the top of the list.
Yeah, I think that's true. The good news is that there is this generation of marketers that's coming in, or generation. I mean, there's people that are thinking heavily about this, and it comes from all generations, but people that are thinking about sales as the ultimate goal. And so I think that increasingly sales can rely on it, but it does depend on marketers to be foresighted about that and to want to be on sales calls and to want to understand truly what happened to their leads and why the lead went dead. It's not just the lead status gets switched over to disqualified. Why was it disqualified? Or the salesperson didn't share a particular piece of content with a prospect. Well, why? Was it not the right content? Was it ineffective in previous usages? Unless a marketer is willing to dive in and get at the coalface, I can understand why a salesperson wouldn't come knocking on a marketer's door first.
Yeah, so this trend toward account-based marketing, account-based selling really is meant, I think, in many respects, say, hey, this is, it takes a village, right?
Mm-hmm.
To borrow the phrase from politics.
Yeah, well, that's right.
And that it's not territorial, it's team.
Right, that's right. Yeah, I think you're right because because even within those accounts, there's going to be different roles of people within the buying in the buying process. Some of those people the sales team may never speak to, but they're influencers. They have the necessary head nod, and marketing plays a role there too. And that could be marketing automation. That's giving those 19 other people insights or warm and fuzzies that the vendor that the champion is going to choose is actually the right person.
Yeah, well, you have two interesting things you talk about in your literature, which is one, I thought this research report you quote from 4 Quadrants saying that there are 20 people that need to nod their heads for a standard B2B deal. And everybody's familiar with challenger customer and so on, talking about 5.4 decision makers or stakeholders.
Right.
That's a big step up. So what do you think is that difference between their research and what that really means for sellers?
Yeah, I think actually that is it is actually very interesting because the 5.4 I believe is people that actually have to say yes, whereas the 20 that 4 Quadrants was citing are people that may have an influence but aren't necessarily on a buying committee. They may be, let's say, someone in IT. They could be someone in HR or finance that has a parallel responsibility or has some kind of influence. And I think that's where marketing can especially shine because it's part of a sales engagement. These may be people that you haven't identified, don't know who they are. In fact, your champion may not even know that they're having the shadow influence until later in the sales process when they're trying to get budget allocated or budget approved or the contracting done. And so I think the difference between that 5.4 and the 20 is actually really revealing. And so how marketing plays a role there, well, it's twofold. It's identifying who those people are through predictive and through marketing automation and through for lack of a better word, list generation type activities, and that are rolled up under an ABM umbrella. But then secondly, through messaging. And so that messaging may be providing salespeople with content to share or messaging to share. And then also just marketing automation out to these people within the organization that the salesperson may not have the time or the ability to reach out to.
Yeah, well, I think that another way I'd sort of have people look at it is that there are 5.4 people that need to say yes, but there are 20 people who can say no.
I like that.
And that's the thing that salespeople don't really recognize that can really be the killer, is that there's somebody out there that, they're not the decision maker. They can't say yes to go ahead with it. But if they say no, you're screwed.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so then I think where it comes back to then is a business case. Are you equipping the 5.4 folks to build a business case so that when one of those other 20s starts shaking their head, that you have numbers and you have opinion and you have examples of success where you and your champion can overcome those problems.
So let's talk really pragmatically about how that marketing sales collaboration works, because I've talked to some guests on the show where there are weekly meetings, where marketing comes to the weekly sales meeting, and part of the time is allocated to marketing, talking about what does sales need, right? So we're not going off saying this is a neat piece of content to create, but they're only creating in response to what the need is. What other best practices have you seen in that regard for people listening that they can say, okay, this is what we need to do in our company?
Yeah, so I think getting on a sales call with the sales team and kind of soliciting feedback, I think is absolutely it's a great thing to do. I think getting into sales calls, so demonstrations, early discovery calls, having the marketing team just as a good practice, just being involved in those, I think is really important, because if they're not actually hearing the real feedback directly from customers and prospects, it's going to be a major gap in their understanding.
So the benefit to sales, the way you sell that to sales is how? Because they're always leery about bringing someone else along that's just sitting there and not saying anything.
Well, that's right. I think you do a fly on the wall type approach, and obviously not on every sales call, but certainly ones where it's around business case development or trying to pitch the business problem. I think that's a good area good type of call to join. Mm-hmm. And then I think there's less awkwardness, because now it's marketing becomes a partner, especially product marketers, where they are focused on what is the solution that's being offered and what's the tie back to value. I think that's essential.
And it's important for salespeople that the reason one of the ways I would sell it to them is, if the studies are right, that's showing that salespeople are spending up to 30% of their time recreating marketing content to repurpose it for sales purposes. Well, then why do you want to spend that time doing that?
Well,
so much better to have the marketing person there to see what you're doing. Don't get so territorial about the person being involved in your calls. They're there to help you.
Well, that's exactly right. I think there was some Forrester data about where sales as an industry is going, or sales as a profession is going, and it increasingly moving toward that higher value approach, where increasingly it's a salesperson that's able to offer advice, help build business cases, and the like. And so in order to do that, does require that you have materials, have content that you can offer up, advice and guidance, and industry learnings, and those kind of higher value activities. And so you want to, if there's resources out there that you can have marketing as your content creation team, or as your research team that's helping you to get that. I think salespeople need to take advantage of that, and you're finding that there are these proactive marketers that are increasingly wanting to play that role. It's any moment you can get back into core selling, you should take, and this is a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I think another thing that salespeople really need to keep in mind is that there's this mismatch between their sense of how much value they're providing versus the customer's perception. I mean, there's data from Forrester that talks about, and I think you have this on your website, that just 1 out of 5 salespeople adds value to the sales conversations. Mm-hmm. I mean, Altify just did a study that they released about this, that's saying there's a huge mismatch between the customer's perception of the value sales is providing versus what they actually are. Mm-hmm. So it's really time for sales, and I say this as lifelong salesperson and sales manager, is to be open to help.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it all yourself. It's all about it's about winning. It's not about you. It's about getting the order from the customer. And it's not about the personal credit for you. It's about how can we make this happen to help the customer make a good decision.
Well, that's right. And I think, I think the point there about the value is especially apt, because, I think when you are able to provide value, it does two big things. I think one, first off, it's obvious it's going to build a business case, so that, for changing the status quo, or for going with you as a vendor, it's going to be more likely. But then the second thing is more emotional, I guess you could say, which is you've just helped that champion to look good in their organization. Because now, if you're providing value, then, they're providing value back to the 20 or the 5.4 people in their organization that they're having a conversation with. And so, it's not only about the business case, but also about making your champion look great. And so the more value that you can provide them, it doesn't mean hit them with a tidal wave. It does mean, distilling it and, a curated approach to what the content looks like. But if you're giving them materials that are known to be successful for their sales situation, or for where they are in the buyer's journey, they're going to appreciate that, and they're going to want to work with someone like you.
Yeah, well, and I think that the only way sales will stop being skeptical about marketing content is feeling like they had an input into its creation. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really a step that companies really need to focus on. We talk about the marketing sales alignment. it can start very simply. Like I said, just having that weekly conversation about what do we need. It's, they're your internal customer. I know people don't like that phrase these days as much, but they are your internal customer. And then you get away from that scenario where you talk about where 80% of marketing content is never used by sales.
Right. That's right. Yeah, and I think that you can, as a marketer that wants to care more about sales, wants to do more for sales, you can take both a qualitative and a quantitative approach. From a qualitative perspective, definitely getting in those sales calls, hearing what prospects say, definitely getting in front of the sales team and hearing what they're wanting or liking or need changed. But then also from a quantitative perspective, I think marketer, one of the things that's been so fascinating to see about both sales and marketing over the last few years is that move towards more of a scientific approach that buttresses the art of selling and marketing. And so we see that most clearly, I think, in the top of funnel where, marketing automation and predictive, being able to identify which email to send or which content to serve up on a website or
right.
which product, which fries to sell with which burger, let's say. And I think that where we're moving now is towards bringing that quantitative increasingly in the bottom of the funnel. And so you get that with opportunity identification and prioritization. And you're also getting that with content in the bottom of the funnel too. So,
well, yeah, and you talk about that in your white paper, the what content to build for sales. I mean, you have a great statistic in there that I thought was fascinating was that prospects are 200% more likely to download content later in the sales process. That just seems completely counterintuitive, right? I mean, for everything you hear, that I found very stunning, and also that it was data sheets. That was the number one most downloaded piece of content, which, again, seems like a top of funnel type thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I was really blown away by some of the results too. Basically, the methodology for that was, we have lots and lots of customers sharing lots and lots of content. So we just decided to anonymously roll up, which kinds of content are working best. And by working best, I mean that prospects are viewing and downloading the content. So which content is working best in different sales situations and which content types are doing the best. So I would have assumed that something like a implementation guide, let's say, would do really, really well bottom of funnel and do really, really poorly top of funnel. But it was exactly the opposite.
Right.
And so we dug into it. Well, why is that case? Well, it turns out it's because a lot of buyers, they're not necessarily in the market for your product. They see the value, but they're scared to make a change because of the effort required. So if you're able to send an implementation guide that says, look, the effort level is low and you can get up and run in X days, well, that changes the conversation because now me as a buyer, I can make a quick win and look like a star and get something done fast. So it's funny how those counterintuitive things do kick in.
Well, with the data sheets, that's the thing that really got me because I was trying to think, gosh, okay, why would senior managers involved in a buying process be downloading data sheets later in the buying process?
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of is this is definitely sales skepticism here is, they didn't look at the proposal, so they wanted to be able to have armed with some facts they could talk about the product to sound educated before they made a decision.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's the same reason why case studies are the same way, where case studies are very successful bottom of funnel. It's because people want validation towards the end that they're not about to make a bad decision, and they want to know, well, what is it they're actually buying?
Well, they also don't want to get into the real detail. They assume everybody that worked below that is surfacing the recommendation did the detailed evaluation, but they want to have some facts and figures they can hold on to. That may sound too skeptical, but I'm going to stick with it.
No, you're absolutely right, Andy. I think you're absolutely right.
All right. Well, we're going to move into the last segment of our show where I've got some standard questions I ask all my guests. And Peter, are you ready?
I'm all set.
Okay. So first one is, and if you've listened to episodes of the show, you might have heard this question before, is you've just been hired as a new sales leader at a company whose sales have stalled out. And the CEO and the board want anxious things to start turning around pretty quickly. So what two things could you do your first week on the job that could have the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think I would look at stalled deals initially. These are things that are already in play, and I would get all of my sales team together, understand what's going on with all of my stalled deals, and see how we can push them forward. The second thing is going back to existing customers, always the easiest place to work with. And so if you're able to go back to existing customers with new products or related products for upsell, great place to go to. I think when you're talking with the board long-term fixes, obviously you need to have a strategy and approach there, and that's going to be things like team, or that's going to be go-to-market, or that's going to be just product market fit in general. But on a short-term basis, you've got to work with the material that's already advancing right now. That means existing customers, and that means opportunities that have stalled out. So that's where I would start.
Okay, great answer. So here's some rapid-fire questions. You can give me one-word answers or elaborate if you wish. So when you personally, Peter, are out selling, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
It's going to be market knowledge. People are looking to build a business case. They're looking to understand why they need to move now. And if you're coming at them with just product knowledge, if you're just selling your product as opposed to why you need to change, you're not going to move the needle. But if you're able to come in with expertise around why other people have made a change and how they've been successful, that's going to be the most effective thing that you're going to do.
Okay. So who's your sales role model?
My sales role model is my father, and reason why is because he had a fantastic style that was very personable and very modest, but at the same time, he knew everything about the industry he was in. He was in clothing manufacturing, and he knew up and down what how that industry worked. And then when he moved into more of like a business consulting role, he had just this broad range of experience that he was always able to apply words of wisdom. I think that's probably where I got that focus on market expertise was from him.
Yeah. No, he sounds like my type of guy, actually.
Yeah.
So one book, doesn't have to be a sales book, but one book every salesperson should read.
Oh, that's a great one. So I think that I hate to be kind of boring on this one, but the CEB, I'm sorry to say, it has been a fantastic resource for me. So I would definitely recommend those.
Challenger books for people.
The Challenger books. Sorry, yeah. So the Challenger books have been exceptional. I really enjoy those. The other thing that I think I'd recommend is maybe, if you don't mind me spinning the question a little bit.
Go ahead.
Is actually blogs. I find that I get just a ton of insights from a lot of the great bloggers that are out there that are writing on sales and marketing, and I love to stay in touch with what they're saying. And so I would really recommend, although books can be great, the little micro lessons and tips and tricks that you get from some of the sales experts, and thinking about folks like Trish Bertuzzi and Nancy Nardin, and yourself through your podcasts and others. I mean, I think that's where I really like to focus, is because you can digest those quickly on your drive in or wherever. So
exactly. No, those are good suggestions too. Both those. Okay. Last question. What music's on your playlist these days?
Well, so there's two camps. So now that school is out, there's a different set.
You no longer have control of the music in the car.
That's right. So I do drive my kids into school. So typically in the morning it is primarily focused on Taylor Swift and let's see, I think his name is Charlie Pluth, if I recall correctly. But now that I'm on my own, it tends to be news and podcasts. And if you were just outside of the world of sales and marketing podcasts, big believer in Our Time podcast from BBC. Highly recommended if you care about everything from science through literature. It's a great podcast.
Oh, In Our Time. Okay, I haven't heard that one. I mean, I'm a huge Radiolab fan, so that's always something I try to catch up on. So, well, good. Well, Peter, thanks for joining me. It's been a pleasure, and tell folks how they can find out more about you and Knowledge Tree.
Absolutely. Yeah, please do visit knowledgetree.com, and that's where you can find our very, very active blog, as well as other resources, including some of the research that you'd mentioned about which content marketing teams should build for sales organizations. Yeah,
the white paper in particular, the research report that referenced before, what content to build for sales. I thought that was really useful.
Great. Well, I'm glad it was.
Yeah, people should go there and download it. So thanks again. And remember, friends, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And easy way to do that is to make this podcast, Accelerate, a part of your daily routine. Listen on your commute, like Peter does, in the gym, or make it part of your morning sales meeting. That way you won't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Peter Mollins, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.